Good evening, treasure seekers. This is Blake coming to you live from New Mexico, and joining me as always from Washington State, it's Bryn and Cody. How's it going, guys?
Hey, doing good. How are you guys? How are you, Blake? Blake
Good.
And Cody?
Good. Cody,
Good.
anything good happening?
Yeah. We had a ton of family in town this weekend, so it's been kind of a whirlwind, just all over the place. Everyone wants to see us.
Very popular.
And then, got to sit down for just a minute before the podcast and enjoy some football. Good football this weekend, good outcomes.
Yes.
Bryn and I are matched up in fantasy football, and it's been looking not good for me.
Sorry to hear that. Sorry for your loss.
Not yet, but it's not looking good.
So in the league that we're playing in, I'm 9-1. Cody's 1-9, and those are the standings because we have a league median, and if you beat the median, you also get a point. Anyways, so I'm in first. Cody's in last. We're matched up, and like all of his players are like have a bye or injured. So he just had to like scrape together a lineup, and he's been hanging on the whole time. I'm a little bit nervous that he might beat me.
It was comical. It's like 8 of my players are out, and it's to the point where it's like I have to pick up players off the waivers, but I don't have any room left because they're not on injured reserve. They're just out. So it's like, do I drop my actual like starting players I'm going to use for the rest of the season? I don't know. I'm 1-9, so it's kind of all a moot point anyway.
But I would be devastated to lose to you.
Right. Well, everybody will be on pins and needles waiting for the result of your game next week.
Yeah. A house divided.
That will be fantasy football talk for today. All right. Ready to dive into content? All right. Let's start with the news. So I think I just have the small news piece. Just a reminder that there was a new Matthew Hobbies video out today, or a couple. I think it was today actually, or yesterday. He's covering chapter 2 of There's Treasure Inside. So I don't know. He only has like 350 subscribers or something. I feel like it should be a lot more. So anybody listening to this that likes There's Treasure Inside, I think you should subscribe to Matthew Hobbies. I put the link down below every time. The subscriber count is not going up fast enough for my liking because I like Matthew Hobbies. So let's make sure we support his good work. He did some really interesting findings of colors. I know that's not particularly new theme for There's Treasure Inside, but it got the gears turning for me. So I'm going to be hopefully having a color analysis, horseshoes and hand grenades next week for you guys.
Nice.
It's already very interesting what I've done so far over the weekend. So anyway.
You say color, do you mean like the page backgrounds?
No, sorry. Good clarification. And we had a mailbag about this as well, about, chapter 1 being pretty heavily about the color blue.
I see. Okay, rubies to wear. Okay.
Chapter 2 being about the 100 rings of Tu Yet Nu Yet, with kind of the meanings of different colors through the lens of Buddhism or Hinduism. And so he points out a couple interesting connections in that video. I won't spoil it, but be sure to check out the Matthew Hobbies channel if you're interested in the color theme. And obviously has good nuggets in there as well that get the gears turning. So highly recommend. That's all.
Nice.
Bryn, you have some housekeeping.
Housekeeping notes. First of all, I just want to say, falling a little bit behind on the mailbag. I was keeping up there really well for a while. So the mailbag, I was not in it this past week. So if we have not gotten back to you, that's why. I've been prioritizing looking for a job and interviewing for a job. So
That's bad.
That
That's
has
bad
been
news for us.
that's been a priority over the treasure hunt at the moment.
The podcast isn't quite profitable enough to be
Yeah.
your primary source of income.
If next week, if you see ads coming on every 2 minutes, you'll know things are very dire.
Make sure to watch the full ad.
Yeah.
Click the link. Get a click through.
Anyways, I promise we'll get back to the mailbag soon. I wanted to call out that there is a new children's ebook series called The Treasure Pack. And the first book, The Littlest Treasure Hunter, is now released on Amazon.
Huh.
So I wanted to call this out because the author of the books wrote in and nicely acknowledged our podcast, complimented us, said they were a listener, and that they acknowledged us in the dedication along with a few other content creators. So that was
Wow.
very nice and thoughtful of them.
Oh,
So I want to
yeah.
give a shout out to check out the first book, The Littlest Treasure Hunter, if you have maybe a child interested in treasure hunting. So that was very sweet.
Oh, that's so cool.
Sweet.
I feel a little goosebumps being in the acknowledgments section. That's amazing. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, very cool to be part of the treasure hunt community and be acknowledged in that way along with some of the other creators. So thank you.
I hope there's a picture of us in there, and then the author could like modify my hairline.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut, since we think that there was a modification of the child's hairline in. Sorry, I had to explain the joke, but there was a modification of the hairline of the child in our Unbreakable Thread, potentially.
Excellent connections. And last, I just want to say there's been demand in the YouTube comments to know what is in your big red cup when you're drinking from your big red cup, Blake. It said, is there room for sponsorship?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's water. Not that proves anything, what I'm showing, just water. It used to be a Dr. Pepper cup, but I ran it
scratched off.
I ran it through the dishwasher, so now it doesn't say Dr. Pepper anymore. But that's from the Dr. Pepper Museum from Waco, Texas.
Yes. Nice.
Okay, interesting. Yes, I'm always afraid to look at YouTube comments, so I'm glad you're monitoring them. Don't want to get my ego bruised.
I'm not. This is not saying we are going to be acknowledging all the YouTube comments. I just happened to see this one. We're not keeping a close eye on them. So if you're wanting to get in touch, use the mailbag, please.
Mailbag, yes, because the spelling of the email address for the mailbag is very difficult. We feel like it filters out. You have to have a large amount of effort to send us a mail compared to commenting on YouTube.
Yeah, you need to think for a minute.
Cool. All right. Also from the YouTube comments, according to Bryn, we have a popular segment coming back called "What's More Likely" from last week.
What's more likely? Yeah.
So thank you very much to Rashawn, of course, for generating a new "What's More Likely" theme song. It kind of pokes fun at Cody a little bit. Sorry, Cody, with the part. He sent us a version as well, but I checked with you first to see how thick your skin was.
The ums are just my brand at this point.
I feel like I got the actually worst end of the stick there. Let's listen.
What's more likely?
I have like the weird. What's more likely? like, couldn't you edit that out too? I would prefer that. Brain, can you say what's more likely? And maybe he can make a version 3 of this.
What's more likely?
Oh, that's not quite on tune. See, we'll see what he can do with that. All right.
Yeah.
So
Yikes.
I agree with Cody actually quite a bit, and it seems like I agree with some of the audience too that being able to spurn some additional organic discussions using this approach seemed fruitful. So we're going to try it again. This week I have the what's more likely questions so that Cody can participate as well. So we'll see how this goes.
Excited.
I think we can dive right into it. Question number 1, and looking at the podcast outline, hopefully this isn't too revealing, but it'll be a little preview for our next segment. Question 1, what's more likely? There will be more clues in the word search that are going to be revealed, or there are no more clues in the word search that are going to be found. And by clues, I'm meaning like we have the initial words, we have the unscrambled anagrams that make sentences. We theorize that the corners mean something, and other, let's say, popular solves to the word search grid. Is it more likely that that's it? And now we just have to use that information along with the information in the chapter to solve the box? Or do you think there's going to be more, let's say, breakthroughs in finding clues in the word search specifically?
I can go first because I'm probably going to be a little bit more brief. So I think when he says there's 5 clues, I think that ultimately comes down to 5 different manipulations of the word search to get 5 clues. So Blake, you just mentioned a few of them, but ultimately, I mean, what we're left with, what, 2, maybe 2 left that we need to reveal. One of those might be like figuring out the O's or something like that. So I do think we're due for a couple more breakthroughs to hopefully get to 5 different modifications or uses of the word search. Would be my best guess.
Okay.
I guess that's kind of how I'm interpreting it from the outside.
Right. Cody.
Yeah, this will actually save me a little bit of time, I think, when I get to my horseshoes and hand grenades, because I can start explaining some of my thought process now. I think that there is more to be had there. And I think that there actually needs to be, I'm going to say it's more likely that there's actually more manipulation of cells. Not even just like, oh, there's something with the O's and the placement of the O's, but like actually kind of swapping and anagramming in some way. For me at this point, it seems like it's kind of complex at face value with how much we've pulled out of that word search, but really it's not if you kind of reverse engineer it and look at how much effort needed to go into creating it from the puzzle maker's side. And what's really kind of rubbing me the wrong way is that he, at this point, with the information that we have, he wasn't limited in really any significant way in the message that we get out of the anagram. And it seems too weird and too like pseudo cryptic almost to not have been influenced by something else within the, like, to not have another constraint in the crossword that we haven't found yet that made the kind of pigeonholed him into saying some kind of more strange things. So I'm definitely pretty firmly on the, it's more likely that there's something fairly significant with actual cell manipulation inside of the not the crossword, the word search.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could definitely buy into that argument because of the mention of Excel in the past and future box chapter. And so if there's a hint of putting that word search into Excel, that would, in my mind, mean a way to manipulate it. Now, whether or not that helps a solver more easily find the anagrams and things like that and mark certain things, that could definitely be argued. I think I am actually on the side of there's going to be no more clues found within the word search. I think I can kind of list out what I think. And I think there's still solutions to be solved, mainly with the O's and how those are to be used. I think I've not been convinced by that yet. But let's just count them. I think if there are 5 clues in this word search, number 1 would just be the words that you find in the word search. I think in my mind that counts as a clue, using those words in some way. Number 2 is the anagram. Not necessarily there are 5 clues in this word search, but the part after that, right? To complete the mission, etc., etc. Like using that in some way. Is 2. The corners, which are join paths. The O's, which in my mind have to be a clue, and the placement of those O's. And then the kind of 10 block letters, the block of 10 letters at the bottom middle of the word search that are not used in any of the anagrams. I think that still remains to be resolved. I know there's some indication that some way to translate those with the Caesar cipher can give you an anagram for sickle. Is that true? I can't remember if that's true or if there's different things. Oh, maybe the 5th one is the so that block of 10 letters I think could be a clue. I think maybe the 5th clue you could come up with is the state abbreviations and the pattern that makes. So in my mind, there's already 5 things. So anyway, maybe your horseshoes and hand grenades today will convince me otherwise, but if we're saying what's more likely, I don't know how many thousands of people have been looking at this, and if somebody's come up with a breakthrough, they may or may not share it online, certainly. But I feel like it's been picked apart pretty well, in my opinion. And as you're saying, from the puzzle maker's side of things, it seems pretty clear to me where the clues are, and going multiple layers deeper, I think, is too hard to design, in my opinion. So that's where I stand.
See, I don't think it's too hard to design. I think that there's a ton of room still in there for him to have multiple, we keep calling them layers. They're not really layers, but just multiple different ways of manipulating the same information to get 2 different clues. Right. I do want to rephrase my argument and just kind of rephrase it one more time. And I think it might change your mind a little bit. I think if those 5 clues that you just described, if that is all that is supposed to be in the word search, it would have taken him no additional effort to have put that same information in the word search in almost the same way, but remove kind of some of the weird gray areas. I feel like those weird gray areas have to be a product of some other clue that's hidden in there that constrained him in that way. Because if you go back and kind of look at how we came to the consensus that we've come to as a community of, those 5 things, there is some strange, weird, somewhat illogical steps that needed to be taken that we kind of, again, hand waved away because the anagram is so clean when we actually got to that point. And it kind of retroactively said, we were probably right because we got this answer that makes sense. So, yeah, I just think that there's something else that forced his hand into creating those little illogical bits.
Right.
I will also say that while I agree that thousands of people have looked at it at this point, one of the Discord detectives that I'm really excited to talk about, but we're not going to in this episode, talks about, goes into kind of JCB as a puzzle creator a little bit. And one of my big takeaways is that as a novice puzzle creator, it's very easy to create puzzles that seem obvious to you, but are very not obvious to the people trying to solve it. And I think that could be playing into the whole thousands of people have looked at this and no one's found some of these other possible clues.
Or at least shared them.
Yeah, or at least shared them.
Okay. Interesting. More discussion to be had. Question number 2. What is more likely? And this is disclaimer here is that the two things I'm about to mention, in my opinion, are real clues in the book. So take that with a grain of salt. But question number 2, what's more likely? The Hopi calendar clue is solved, or the magnifying glass symbols are solved. So to give a little bit of context, we think those underlines in the Hopi calendar of certain letters that are marked is, in my opinion, definitely some sort of puzzle or clue. And also, in my opinion, I think those markings that seem to have been added to the Fabergé magnifying glass are also a clue. What's more likely, that we're going to get a satisfying solve or partial solution to the Hopi calendar that we're convinced by, or the magnifying glass?
So you're not saying like we have a solution for them now, but when the solution comes out, there would be a definitive solve for it.
They're like an integral part of the.
That it would be like a breakthrough in the community, in my opinion.
I'm gonna have to go with the lines on the Hopi calendar. I think that's like an absolute non-negotiable because it's just so distinct, and I think the Hopi calendar is such a prominent graphic in the book, and it has a whole page, and he has the whole section about the Hopi, and like I just think there's no way that that's not used. Whereas the markings on the magnifying glass, I agree, would be a clue, but if they are a clue when the solution comes out, I think it would be maybe a much less significant, less weight on those markings would be my guess.
Yeah, I guess I'm hoping nice. That I think there will be a breakthrough that isn't necessarily part of the full revealed solve that we can work on, more so than the answer being revealed as part of the solution. I hope we get to some explanations that convince me earlier than just not finding the box or having somebody else find the box and having it be part of the solve.
Yeah, it would be thrilling to have some sort of like all we have really been able to get is the anagram from the Wordsearch.
Right.
It's like we need something else here.
That's just like solid that the community agrees
yeah.
on. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not all that optimistic about that based on the Forest Fen hunt. Let's give an example, right?
Yeah.
Even when it was said it was found, we have never really gotten a formal solve, right? It's all speculation. So that is a bit unsatisfying, I would say.
Yeah, I'm crossing my fingers that it's just kind of a differently formatted search in general than the Forest Fen one. Or, yeah, the Forest Fen ones felt very much like if you're on the right path, you're on the right path. And I'm hoping this one's more like, yeah, I'm hoping there's just some things that can be kind of breakthroughs on the way to the real answer, the final answer.
Mm-hmm.
To answer what's more likely question on my end, I'm also going Hopi calendar, and I don't know if you guys know this about me, if we ever discussed it. I was kind of just quiet over in the corner, but I'm not a huge magnifying glass guy.
Really?
Like, I'm definitely not like, oh, that's definitely not right, but I'm probably under 50% that it's like anything at all. So, sorry.
I mean, I can understand that. I'm not shocked by that coming from you.
If it was like a what's more likely, the magnifying glass is nothing or the magnifying glass is something, I'd be like leaning on the nothing side, but just barely, like closer to 50-50.
Okay. Yeah, I think if I were to rank order my favorite clues that I think are hard clues at this point, it would be like page 90, Hopi calendar up there, and then I'd say I actually agree with you that magnifying glass is a little bit of a tier below that, but I definitely think it's something. I would be not at 50-50 on that. All right. Question number 3. what is more likely, that JCB reveals another major clue or the first box is found? And by major clue, I'm kind of putting that in context of I feel like a box not being in Yellowstone is a major clue.
That's the first thing I thought of when you said major clue.
Yeah.
I'll say, if you don't mind me going first this time, Bryn.
Nope.
I'll say it's more likely that JCB says something that the community interprets as major in one of these interviews. Just the trajectory of how JCB seems to have started interviews in those first couple months and like went out and said, "Hey, I'm not Forrest Fenn. I'm not going to be all coy and dropping these little hints in interviews." And it's just slowly shifted to now like, "Oh yeah, it's not in Yellowstone." I feel like that's actually over the time frame of a hunt that could, people have talked about lasting a decade. He's very quickly gone from that point A to point B, and it kind of loosened up a little bit. So I could definitely see it, a couple months down the line, him saying something on that same level as it's not in Yellowstone on another podcast.
Interesting.
The Yellowstone comment feels very much like a one-off to me. I guess I'm maybe still a little curious if that was something like he was actually kind of prompted to say by Yellowstone. And I think maybe, regardless, I think he saw what kind of reaction he got from that comment. And I think he's probably in a situation now where he's a little bit back to being more careful about what he's saying. I think if I were in his shoes and I was not wanting to go the Forrest Fenn interview route of dropping more clues, that was probably a rude awakening for him to be like, "Oh, I'm going down a slippery slope here." And I would imagine he's kind of reining it back in. And I gotta believe that a box is gonna be found. I want to say soon. I mean, for the majority of the boxes, we're getting close to weather that's probably not conducive to finding the box, but spring is not going to be far away. And so I think if people are really able to work on their solves throughout the winter, I think someone's going to come out pretty hot in the spring and locate one. Is my guess.
Yeah. Are you surprised that a box has not been found in Lake Tahoe yet, based on a lot of enthusiasm for Lake Tahoe for the Past and Future box?
Have there been like recent developments, or is this the same just from the beginning?
What you've been seeing? Okay.
No.
All right.
No, but I mean, I guess I've also just been pretty dialed in on Pokemon box.
Sure. All right. Yeah, I think I'm more in your camp, Bryn, that I think a box will be found before. I also thought in my mind that the Yellowstone comment was a one-off as well, in my opinion. So we are in agreement on that. All right. Cool. Very good segment. Good idea, Cody. All credit to you.
Nice questions. Those are good. I think those questions are so hard to think of.
Oh, really? I've got a whole list of them ready to go if we want to do the segment again. So
I have one.
If you like the segment, give a thumbs up to the video and subscribe. Then we'll know.
Yeah. We'll keep it going if we get to 2,000 subscribers.
All right. Let's get into horseshoes and hand grenades. If I can find the clip. Oh, here. All right, Cody, as hinted at, you have some updates on the Past and Future box for your horseshoes and hand grenades today?
Yeah, this is probably week 2 or week 3 of me focusing in a little bit on the Past and Future box. And it's week 1 officially of my new hard stance or personal theme, whatever you want to call it, of I'm starting to rule things out and not tug on more strings or open up more possibilities. And I'm also trying to, kind of goes hand in hand with that, I'm trying to start with some of the more obvious things and then work my way into some more obscure ideas, because I think I get really excited about the obscure ideas. I'm like, oh, if that was it, that would be so cool. So I'm just going to start with something really obscure instead of something obvious. And we know that JCB had that, what was it, an interview or something where he had said, basically, keep it simple, start with some of the simple stuff. Some people are overthinking it. And I'm prone to being an overthinker. So that being said, I spent some time looking at the past and future box and very specifically at the word search. And I don't really have one big thing, but I have another kind of sampling of a handful of different things, almost like notes from some time spent with the word search. I got to start with this first one because Bryn has reminded me to mention it like 4 times now, even though I don't think it's that interesting. It's tied in with the idea of Bryn thinks it's clever. It's tied in with what I had talked about in the what's more likely, being that given the constraints that we have now, or given the information that we have now, if that was everything, JCB basically could have picked any phrase that he wanted for the output of that anagram, where it's there are 5 clues in this word search, but don't tell anyone. Da 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 da. We all know it at this point. So, given that, I started by working under the assumption, actually, which is the opposite of what I said and what's more likely. I started by working under the assumption that that is all of the information that is hidden in the word search. And because of that, I need to place extra emphasis on the output of that anagram and ask myself, why is he saying the things he's saying? The one that really jumped out at me was, but don't tell anyone. That almost felt like a throwaway line. It's like, why include that? I'm sure there's something more significant or interesting or punny or just interesting in some way that you could put there than but don't tell anyone. So I went down the but don't tell anyone avenue, and I will now tell you what Bryn thinks is clever, which is the other day. Where were we? We were at a birthday party or something. We're watching a birthday party on TV. I can't remember. Anyway, they were blowing out, someone was blowing out candles, and someone else said, make sure you don't tell anyone your wish or it won't come true. And I leaned over to Bryn and I said, hey, I've been thinking about the but don't tell anyone in the word search and how just like strange that is. And it's almost like, it seems kind of overt in the way like this is a treasure hunt. Don't tell anyone this clue that you've found that's special. But I don't think that's what it is. And if that's not what it is, then what could it possibly be referencing? It was kind of the first time I made a connection that felt obvious. Not obvious that it's right, but it would obvious that that makes sense at least. So looking at the but don't tell anyone from the word search and seeing if I can find any connections to like birthdays, which we had talked about as a theme before, and the whole don't tell anyone your wish when you blow out the candles. I also used the but don't tell anyone to try and come up with some like passphrases or keywords to use in some of my other methods. Like if maybe the word quiet is the one that immediately comes to mind for but don't tell anyone. So I use the word quiet and a couple kind of synonyms for quiet as keywords in some of my other things that I had looked at and went back to that and then kind of created some new things. One thing that I used the word quiet for was, I should probably have a picture of this or something, but I don't. It's basically the idea of leading letters. So for every word that we found in the cryptogram, I kind of made the letter directly in front of that. Sorry, every word we found in the word search, I kind of made the letter directly in front of that kind of be its reference letter. And then I kind of made a table out of those and tried to see if I could come up with keywords using those letters where I could order the words from the word search or come up with like 5 words from the word search because of the whole there are 5 clues. So that was my idea of leading letters. And one thing I really liked within the word search that made me feel, I was never super confident with the leading letters theory, but made me feel kind of a little bit more confirmed, is the word rail or liar in there, which has a 0 in front and a 0 after. So that's the only word in the word search that is, I don't know what the word for that is, but it could go one way or the other way, as rail or as liar.
Interesting.
But whichever way it goes, it would have the same letter in front of it. So I thought that was kind of like an interesting clue towards maybe this whole what letters directly in front of each of these words could mean something.
Interesting.
So I looked into that for a little bit. The next thing I looked into was constellations, because I felt like constellations is another kind of merging of multiple different themes from the book. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to find a use for the O's, primarily is where it started, actually. So if I connect all the O's, doesn't match up with any known star constellations or look similar. And then I tried that same thing with basically every different letter from the word search.
Wow.
I'm totally scrapping that idea.
Okay.
It's another one where it's like on Facebook, if you think about it without thinking too much about it and think, hey, if that ended up being something that JCB actually used, would that be like satisfying and cool? And I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be a total satisfying and cool way of using the word search. Here's some of the issues I ran into. One, way too many options between 26 different letters, or even if you just look at the O's. And then there was something like, I didn't write it down, but like between 150 and 200 different constellations. So just a lot to check, which is not like a good enough reason to disregard the idea, but it's kind of a mark against it, I guess.
Okay.
Problem number two, back to the old scaling issues, which we keep running into with any of the word search kind of becoming a picture in some way or connecting the dots in some way. We just don't really know. I guess you could make if you make them all square, I guess, but it starts getting to the point where it's like, hey, if I just make it twice as wide and half as tall, then it looks more like this constellation, and it kind of becomes, again, kind of more of an art than a science. And then the biggest reason that I'm thinking I'm just going to scrap it is that, and I didn't know this, there's no definitive source for how many stars are in a constellation. It's not like, hey, here's the constellation and there's 8 stars that make up this constellation. There's like a ton of different factors. The biggest one being like, at what brightness are you considering? Because there's some stars that are like more bright or more dim, and you can either include them as a node in the constellation or not include them. So I kind of thought the constellations were like very definitive. Here's your 8 points.
Right.
These are these specific stars. If you connect them, it makes this shape. Here's the ancient Greek or Latin or whatever it is reason for why this is what it is. But that's not really the case. So that one just kind of became too many different variables and started breaking my rule of keeping things simple and narrowing down instead of widening up and checking 10,000 different options and iterations and whatnot.
Even though the last paragraph mentions as happy as if basking in the heavens. I mean, was that a trigger for you to think about constellations, or
No, it was not a trigger for me.
Okay.
More was just probably if I had to list 10 themes from the book, one of them would be just like cosmological bodies and stars and stuff like that.
Sure.
Now that you say that, it makes me think if I should revisit it. Just breaking my own rules here.
Yellow light.
Okay, so then once I got really into the idea of keep it simple, start from the beginning, I went and I wanted to still find a way to use these O's. So I tried to make a connection between the O's and the end of the cryptogram of over, under, in between. And I thought, is there a way to use the O's and something over, under, in between the O's to find something interesting? So you can pull up that picture now that's called Real W.
Okay.
So I started by highlighting all the O's in the word search and then listing out what letters were over the O's, what letters were under the O's, and there were a lot of them. And then what got interesting is when I got to the point of what's in between the O's, and I had a little heart racing moment. So The O's here are obviously highlighted in like a magenta-ish color, and I didn't highlight the overs or the unders because there was like, well, what are there? 19 O's. So
Yeah.
a lot of letters over, a lot of letters under. None of them really seem to. What's that?
There's more than 19, but there's leftover after you complete. I think there's 33 O's in the whole word search.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Yeah, it was no, thank you. It was a lot. I got a lot of outputs, obviously, from the over and the under, and it didn't really seem to mean anything. And I tried to dial myself back, and I was like, all right, I'll just start anagramming groups of these and stuff like that. I'm like, no, I'm keeping it simple. But the in between is where I like my heart started to race for a second because there's not a whole lot of instances of it. And I was starting by kind of like the reading a book horizontally, and I got R between the two O's on the third line, and then E between the two O's on the fourth line, and then A between the two O's on the sixth line. Mm-hmm. And then I started kind of going vertically left to right. It got the L. And when I got to real, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to say something. Real is a word, and real is an important word. And then I just got W, and then it ended. So I was really excited for a second and did a little bit of research to see if real W meant anything. And I was kind of grasping at straws and didn't really come up with anything. But that kind of is the kind of stuff I'm trying to do more of, is some more, take the information in the book, do something super straightforward with it. Don't try and get too fancy and kind of out of my depth, because I have a tendency to do that. So yeah, I was excited about the real W for a second, but nothing really came of my idea of merging the over, under, in between and the O's. I tried a few other things too that didn't really pan out. Like if I include double letters between O's and stuff like that. And
yeah, how about just as a thought live here, looking at the diagonal O's. So if you look at, there's two instances I can see of an E being between two O's, I believe. So here, for example, and I thought I had spotted one more, but now I'm skeptical. Might just
there's
be
a D there and a Y. It is something I looked at, and I just eyeballed it, and the letters didn't seem like anything.
Okay.
But I could definitely take another look at it.
Oh yeah, the D. Yeah, I didn't even see that one, and the Y. You're right. Okay.
Another E. Yeah, because I eyeballed a handful of those kind of things and didn't really come up with anything.
Okay. Interesting.
And again, I just really struggle with not being able to like move on to something else and not just like go into like more and more obscure ways of using the same idea.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, one of the challenges for sure is depending on how obscure you want to go, it gets infinite pretty fast. So
yeah, exactly. So that's it for that picture, and I've got two more things in my notes here that I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
This next one I should have checked Discord for, because I feel like it's definitely the kind of thing that someone must have thought of at this point. But I was kind of excited about it, and that is the 5s and the V's. So there are 5 V's in the word search. Has someone mentioned this before? Do you guys know?
I don't know if I've seen that before.
Okay, because I feel like people have talked about 5 being a theme in the book, and then obviously specific to the word search itself is that there are 5 clues in the word search. And then when I did a letter count on how many times each letter shows up in the word search, there were 5 V's. And then obviously V is a Roman numeral for 5. And then he's using Roman numerals for the titles of each of the part 2 chapters. And it very much felt interesting. It felt interesting that there's 5 V's. And I don't know what to do with it.
Which he claimed was a design choice for the Roman numeral. Remember, we talked about that a couple weeks ago. But one more thing about Roman numerals. Sorry, I'm kind of interrupting here. But certainly when you use the cryptogram solution to translate the word search, there's a heavy amount of Roman numeral letters that appear in the word search after that as well. So just another thought. But sorry, you were in the middle of something.
That's pretty much it. That one's a pretty weak one, but it felt worth mentioning because it's one of those things that could probably be like a coincidence of the day, but it's quite a coincidence. Just so many. It's kind of self-referential, and so it feels stronger than it actually is. But yeah, you're gonna say something, Bryn?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Just looked like it. Maybe you're just breathing.
I do. I have a word search comment at the end when you're done.
Okay, I've got one more in this one. I don't know if I'm most excited about it, but I think it's the most interesting.
Okay.
So this is something I came across. I think I referenced this these YouTube videos by this content creator. I can't remember if I referenced it in the actual recording or was just talking to you guys before we hit record. But I think he's basically going to be my Matthew Hobbies. Just how Blake's obsessed with Matthew Hobbies. I think this is like, this guy speaks my language, and he's not, he doesn't do just TTI stuff or just treasure hunting stuff, but it's a relatively new channel, it looks like. And of like the 50 videos, probably guessing 10 of them are about Jon Collins-Black and Treasure Inside. And it's just very logical. And all of his videos are the something effect or the something paradox. And I like it. I like it a lot. So anyway, I was watching a couple of his videos, and I think he had another video that was talking about riddles in general and had nothing to do with the treasure inside. And it totally stood out to me as a treasure inside type thing.
Okay.
And that is the Samson Bee riddle. So the Samson Bee riddle, again, kind of feels like another overlap of themes from the book. The Samson Bee riddle comes from the Bible, so it's a religious thing. It's bee, it's riddle.
Just bee on a pistol.
Bee on a pistol, riddles. It's from the book of Judges in the Bible. And from what I understand, it's the only true like riddle that's written out as a riddle in the Bible.
Huh.
And there's this whole story, and it probably won't make a ton of sense out of context, but basically Samson is traveling for this wedding. I'm going to totally butcher this. For this wedding, kills a lion, comes back later, and there's a bee's nest in the lion, and he takes some honey from the lion, then goes back to this wedding. I'm totally butchering this, but goes back to the wedding, and then needs to come up with this riddle, or comes with a riddle for some reason, and he makes a riddle out of, where do you get something sweet out of a lion? And I think, from what I understand, the point of it is that the people answering the riddle aren't supposed to be able to know what the answer is because it's like his own personal anecdote. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what's actually interesting about it in this context is the riddle itself, not really the story behind it. But the riddle itself is, out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Very interesting to me, because I've been wondering about the word strong in the cryptogram solution. Like that's one of those ones that's kind of like a weird, almost assumed to be some sort of like metaphorical word choice in the cryptogram.
From and strong then we obviously know.
So what's that?
From strong to stream.
Yeah, exactly. From strong to stream in the cryptogram. And obviously, I would think that JCB, with his religious background, would probably be aware of this. And this is a very interesting use of the word strong in the biblical context in a riddle. So that's why I was initially drawn to it, is strong and strong. And then my extra little tidbit is that the answer to the riddle, that out of the strong came something sweet. The strong is a lion. And obviously this is a part 2 box, but It feels like another little connection there. So I mostly thought it was interesting because the word strong came up in a riddle that I think there's a good chance JCB would have been aware of. And then he chose to use the word strong in the cryptogram kind of quote unquote riddle. So that's something I'm keeping in the back of my mind. I got a couple other little things here that aren't that interesting, and I've talked enough. So I will call that it for the horseshoes and hand grenades.
Nice. Oh, there's some good findings for sure. I'm not necessarily convinced that there's more than the 5 clues that we've discussed earlier during What's More Likely, but I really like the constellation idea. It was probably my favorite of those, in my opinion. I think the strong and the riddle, and if we bring up basking in the heavens again, is that pointing to the biblical reference being in play. It's kind of interesting. But
for you saying that there wouldn't be more to solve, though, like Cody using the O's in that way would be, like you were saying, one of your 5 is having to use the O's in a certain way. So that's certainly would tie in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess going back to whether there's going to be more manipulations or puzzles within those, I'm certainly not satisfied with everything using the puzzle structures I mentioned with the O's, using the block of 10 letters at the bottom, things like that. I don't think those have been resolved yet in most cases, but yeah, I'm still on the side of that might be it.
That's crazy. Crazy to me.
I would say to either of you, I mean, for both of your takes, anyone working on the word search, like I think if I was working on this, I would be rereading the chapter over and over and trying to dissect that. I think there's a lot more in this chapter than the word search. And I think figuring out what those themes are and clues are that you can get from the text itself will probably help identify a little bit more of what needs to be done with the word search, would be my guess.
Yeah. That's fair.
Again,
that's fair.
I'm very stuck on the estate planning with my will and testament. How that would come in, I don't know, but there's got to be more hints at what to be doing from either the chapter itself or the references that he's making. Just my guess.
All right.
But what I was going to say is I've decided, this has kind of been in the back of my mind ever since we started, and I think I'm just now realizing how much it bothers me. So people, maybe us, I don't know, we are guilty of it as well. Keep using O and 0 interchangeably for the circles that are in this word search. They're definitely O's. I mean, it is a word search. These are letters populating the word search. They are definitely O's and not zeros if you just look at them in the book. So I think we need to start normalizing calling these O's and not using O's and zeros interchangeably, because we do have zeros as one of the words in the word search. And I think it's very easy to say, oh, these O's are the zeros, which that alone feels like a wild leap to be making when they are O's and not zeros.
Does it matter if they're O's or zeros?
Why would it not?
I mean, we're using O's in some of the letters of the word search, so does that make the remaining 19 O's zeros? Because it says zeros in the word search?
I would say I think the letter or the word 19 could I agree that 19 is referring to the leftover O's.
Okay.
But to me, I would think it's a big mistake to be saying those are zeros and saying that's the reason why zeros is in there.
Okay.
I think we need to then be saying, well, these are 19 O's.
Okay.
What does zeros mean? I mean, you could argue that they are kind of zeros if they're like null cells in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's just an unfair assumption to be making.
Okay.
Kind of in the theme of what Cody was saying last week, where we've kind of all accepted something. I would, I guess, challenge that thinking.
Okay.
As someone not working on the past and future box, if you all want my input.
It's good to have outside perspective.
I just think it's interesting that's just been accepted when they are just literally not zeros.
Okay. All right. Well taken. Let's dive into the mailbag.
Mailbag. We've got mail.
Bryn, you've got a couple of quick mailbags today, I believe.
Yeah, I'm just going to do one. Like I said, I have been neglecting the mailbag. I apologize, but there is one that I have had in the back of my mind that I quickly saw not too long ago. And this is from Kronk. He said, oh, okay, this is for Pokemon Box. He said, did you guys know that the first and only American president to be an Eagle Scout was Gerald R. Ford? Share if you'd like, but I wouldn't.
Oh.
So maybe I'm passing along a nice goodie to you guys. So I thought this was interesting because we have American Eagle in the Pokemon box. And that it's obviously a clue. And I haven't heard anybody with like a very good reason for why he's specifying this eagle to be an American eagle. So this was it's just kind of an interest. I keep thinking like what connection did Kronk make that I have yet to make? I like that it's Ford. I mean, it's a road trip. Ford is also a company name for an automobile. We have, Samsonite and Jayco. So Ford kind of fits in with the company name theme. I don't know. I mean, it certainly is a take on being an American Eagle, if you think of it an Eagle Scout. So I don't have much commentary on it other than it's just kind of been percolating in my mind. So throwing it out there.
Did Kronk say that it is that it that it is specific to the Pokemon box, or did he just mention it in general?
Well, I think it was inferred.
The Pokemon box mentions an American Eagle flying overhead.
But if you said Gerald Ford was the only or first, whichever one it was, American Eagle Scout, we're just going to jump straight to, that he must be referencing the Pokemon box.
That's
what are you talking about?
The American Eagle is where is mentioned specifically, quote unquote, American Eagle in the Pokemon box chapter.
But did he say he was referencing the American Eagle?
Yes.
Oh, you're crazy here?
Yes, you are. And it's also, it was in a thread about the Pokemon box.
Okay.
Even if it wasn't in the thread about the Pokemon box.
I'm just making sure that the entirety of his email wasn't, hey, Gerald Ford was the only Eagle Scout president, and that we're then saying, it must be Pokemon box.
I see.
Okay.
No, this is about the Pokemon box.
Gotcha. Okay. Just clarifying.
I remembered we had talked about whether we think American Eagle is a real term or not, right? I mean, American Eagle is also a brand name.
But then he would have capitalized the E as well.
Okay. So an American Eagle is a real bird name referring to the bald eagle. The official and common name. While American Eagle is widely used, I don't know if I agree with this AI summary. Its scientific name is something, and it's more commonly known as the bald eagle. So I'm just thinking, why would he have called it an American Eagle in the chapter? Was he trying to avoid the word bald eagle for some reason?
We should also double check that it's not like common to call them American Eagles on the East Coast because we have West Coast terminology bias over here.
Yeah.
We definitely 100% of the time would call it a bald eagle.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to look at the Wikipedia article, which is called Bald Eagle. This article is about the bird of prey. For other uses, see bald eagle disambiguation. Quote unquote, American eagle redirects here. So let me see. American eagle may refer to a bald eagle. There's an American eagle bullion coin produced by the U.S. Mint. The American Eagles, the athletics team representing American University. The United States National Rugby Union team is nicknamed the Eagles. British Bulldog game, also known as American Eagle in the US. It's a tag-based playground and sporting game. Never heard of that in my life. Transport American Eagle roller coaster, a racing wooden roller coaster at Six Flags America in Gurnee, Illinois. Solved.
Oh, solved.
AMC Eagle, also known as the American Eagle, it's a car. North American Eagle is a jet-powered automotive vying for a speed record. American Eagle is an airline. I think that I've seen mentioned before. But I think that American Eagle Airlines wasn't around in the 70s. I think it was more recent. American Eagle Aircraft Corporation. American Eagle is a schooner, a historic schooner in the U.S. National Historical Landmark. It's a cruise ship called the American Eagle. Queen of the Mississippi is a 2015 ship, a paddle wheel river cruise ship that entered service originally American Eagle. I don't know. It's a mystery to me, so that's an interesting connection from Kronk. But having it be one level removed, that you were supposed to make a jump from American Eagle to Eagle Scout and then to a president specifically that was the only Eagle Scout. It's interesting, but I just don't know if I can get there yet.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's been a line that I just keep kind of stumbling over, I think, because I mean, you read that whole list. It's like there are a lot of ways you can go with it. Some obviously feel more correct than others, but nothing feels quite right yet. So I liked that this was a new take on what it could possibly mean.
Cool. Yes, I like that Kronk brings that up as a point of interest because I hadn't really thought about it in a while. All right, Discord detectives. All right. I think I'm doing this a little bit live here. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Why don't I start with this one and we'll see how long it goes and I'll get to another one. Shalmanancer says in the Mysterious Writings Discord about being at a certain spot and looking in a particular direction. I'm quite swayed by a comment I heard in the Unofficial podcast a few weeks ago. That SEX in chapter 21 might point to an X in Joy's Serenade being southeast. So this wasn't, I don't think, our original comment. This was Mailbag, I think, right?
Yep.
And then the quote, and if you stay to see the night, quote, has always struck me as strange. So that's a quote from Joy's Serenade. And if you stay to see the night, quote, has always struck me as strange. Why not? And if you stay the night, quote unquote. One solution, quote unquote, the flame of starlight end quote, rises east. So they're talking about the flame of starlight that would rise from the east. So in the park, the location is south, southeast, or southeast, south. They're using the SE and SEX from chapter 21 to add an additional east or south to that coordinate potentially. Another solution also proposed in the Unofficial podcast is a reference to an eclipse. Quote unquote, to see the night would mean to see the night effect an eclipse generates. Hence, quote unquote, the sky smiles at you would refer to the sun eaten up by a portion of the moon making a smile shape. So that's like my favorite part of this post is the sky smiles at you. Like really, I think could point to an eclipse reference at that point.
Yeah, when you just said that, if I can interrupt for just a second.
Yeah, definitely.
I also thought it was a strong connection, but for a different reason.
Interesting.
I wasn't picturing like the moon covering up the sun and making the little smile at the bottom. I was picturing like the full eclipse path as referenced on like a map, which normally like an arc or any other arc.
Or any other arc. The arcing sun, as mentioned in chapter 3 or 4. Interesting. Let me finish this up. The sky smiles at you would refer to the sun eaten up by a portion of the moon, making a smile shape. JCB may have chose the eclipse day in April 2024 to deposit the box for extra significance. The lines warming / with the sunlight and nature's wide embrace could very well refer to the return of sunshine post-eclipse, and the term spy could suggest a telescope as well. End comment. So a little bit of bolstering of the eclipse theme at the end of this message, which I always enjoy.
Yeah, I thought we had talked about that as I don't know where we made the connection along, but yeah, the little like crescent smiley shape. Maybe we hadn't connected it to the Joyce Serenade line.
Yeah, I don't think I remember connecting that to the Joyce Serenade line. This seemed like new connections to me.
Yeah, I really like it. For sure.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of anything that bolsters the eclipse theory. It's one of my favorites that we had done a segment on. I think we went pretty in depth on some of the information on it, and I'm excited to see, like you said, anything else that bolsters it, because I'm rooting for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the idea that Jon might have hidden it in 2024 when the eclipse was happening. Interesting, but I also think that might not be a good time if a lot of people went to the direct eclipse paths to like sightsee during those times. It might have been busy at some of the parks. Anyway, I thought this was some nice connections of disparate things here.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
All right, some Pokemon banter. Already Know says, I'm sure plenty have made the Japanese connection with Louisiana, especially Baton Rouge, and the Fabergé connections with Baton Rouge. I was not familiar with any of these Japan connections with Baton Rouge or Louisiana. Bryn, have you been tracking those at all?
No.
Okay. So that's why I thought this was helpful. Because I feel like if you had been tracking those, I would know about it.
Well, I'm particularly intrigued because Baton Rouge was on my short list for a while early on.
S13 then says, in my research, I found that New Orleans has a much stronger connection to Japan than Baton Rouge, which has almost no connection. So a little bit of back and forth. I like the Baton Rouge area and will be there this weekend looking for my box.
Ooh.
And then the New Orleans NOMA, Noma, New Orleans Museum of Anthropology, I'm guessing. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't look up the
Arts?
acronym. Yeah. Museum of Art has a Fabergé collection. Very nice. So I thought those were some good nuggets I would point out specifically to you, Bryn.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll have to do some research because yeah, finding the Japanese connection is easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's what's hard is like you kind of need to it feels backwards. Like you almost either need to figure out what the Japanese connection is to make a location work, or you need to like reverse engineer it from your location to see if then the Japanese connection fits in with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm curious to do a little bit of research there.
All right. And a little bit more Pokemon box. Megan says, in reference to the image that I will pull up here now. Back to the classic Pokemon image here. She's talking about this particular section of the image, which is at the bottom left of the final image in the Pokemon box. The expanded reality image, one might call it. Megan says, but the finish, quote unquote, on this object is not the same as the rest of the picture. Something is different here. I feel like it's important. There's just something off about this one object. Notice the depth. Notice the shadow around the nose, quote unquote, is rounded and the object is pointed. Have you done a deep dive onto this particular image? I know kind of showed it in my previous image. I was kind of, when I look for Pokemon in this image, I've always called that a Totodile. See if I can get it in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't done anything specific with like that specific of an area that she is talking about.
Right.
I would agree that like the weird differentiation between the textures and contrasting lights and darks. I mean, I think it's all very much part of, oh my gosh, like how we need to be manipulating the photo in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm still very much on, I keep saying optical illusion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, that might be too specific, but I think there needs to be something manipulated either with the photo or with our vision. Yes, I don't know if I would say like specific to that exact spot, but
yeah,
let me get out my book. Let's see.
I don't necessarily buy it quite as much. I feel like if she's thinking that this object is a bit different and kind of smoother texture, I would also argue as you kind of go out from the center of the image that you see these smoother textures in the other parts of this as well. So I don't know if I buy into that too much. DS 1980 during that comment thread also said, yeah, that's a salamander. So another perspective is that somebody thinks that this is a salamander. I thought it was a Totodile Pokemon. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so a little bit of controversy about what this is.
I think we can all just agree that Mewtwo is the only thing in that image.
We cannot. Let me remind you that the Charizard has 2 horns, the Charmeleon has 1 clear horn, and the Charmander has 0 horns based on the graphic representations I've very helpfully put in here as reference.
If I were to be focusing, I guess, on the textures, kind of that specifically, I would be putting more emphasis like, what is this yellow blotchiness?
Okay.
I mean, that seems to me kind of like the most obvious. Or you can really look at, you can see vertical and horizontal lines kind of with the dot patterns that breaks in occasional spots.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I guess there's more obvious things to be looking into, but that doesn't mean that's right.
Let us go deeper in the rabbit hole.
Okay.
Rah says, okay, guy. Sorry, I said that like very I have no idea what the tone is supposed to be. Okay, guy, I have searched this image 1,000 times at every different angle, and it always comes back to an eerie woman, as it's too blurry. I also so let's look at the eerie woman.
Eerie woman.
So circled in red is what they are calling the eerie woman. I've never seen this been mentioned before. But you kind of had two eyes. It almost looks like a Mewtwo to me. So this is the image that's in the Discord, and then it's turned sideways.
Okay.
I can show you where it is in 1 second.
I see it.
So right here in the horizontal image, there's an eerie woman or a Mewtwo, kind of in the reflection of the water there.
A mermaid.
So just making Cody angry right now. I'll make you even more angry. Watch this.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Watch this.
I think, kind of like on the topic, getting back to basics. Like, I think we need to work. We need to work with what is. I don't know. Like, there's just more obvious things I think that need to be worked on. Maybe not. If you're in Cody's boat, it's just the Mewtwo, but. Cody, like, if it's just the Mewtwo, then what's the point of this half page? This is a huge photo in the book. The Mewtwo is certainly not hidden. Like, so what's the whole point of the photo then?
I mean, the cryptogram in Past and Future certainly wasn't difficult to solve. Not everything is going to be. I don't think there's going to be a direct correlation between how much space something takes up and how important it is.
The cryptogram, sure, you have the solution, but the cryptogram has so many layers to what it means. Nobody knows what the cryptogram is telling us.
So if it were just the Mewtwo in there, Cody, then what's the point of the image? Is it to give you a sense of kind of what the landscape of where the treasure is hidden looks like then, as kind of the point of that image?
I don't know. I mean, I would return serve with the question, hey, if there's 3 Charmander evolutions in here, what's the point of the 3 Charmander evolutions?
Well, I
think
it's
showing 3 evolutions compared to skipping over the Frogadier.
I have answers for that.
All right.
The grandfather, father, and JCB. I mean, there's something to generations and the evolutions, and if there's an emphasis on the 3 evolutions, then like why was Froakie or why was Frogadier skipped over?
Right. It points towards Frogadier as being a logical, important point of the story, but not being included, or an important point of the puzzle, but not being included. If it's showing all 3 and it's never mentioning the middle evolution of Froakie to Greninja.
I think I think some of the like Mewtwo was secretly there and he didn't know. JCB didn't know in the story, and that affecting the photos and the photos being overexposed in some way and altering his memory in some way. I think that those are just as logical kind of connections.
Those are great options.
Some of the other connections from some of the ink blot figures that people have found in there.
Yeah. I mean, feel like you're being stubborn. This is clearly three. I mean, if I were just to say this is a Charmander only, yes, you could be skeptical of that. But to have 3 clear Pokemon that evolve from the same lineage, that is not coincidence, Cody.
Also,
I don't even think it reaches. Here's the thing. I pride myself. I feel like one of my greatest personal advantages or assets in the treasure hunt when I'm doing my stuff is I'm like super open-minded, and like anything could be true. I don't believe that I know any better than anyone else on anything, and I'm totally open to new ideas. And I feel like I'm fighting, really digging my heels in on this just because I'm getting upset about it. It's
someone on our last video commented that we're nice and respectful to each other, and I'm about to not be.
Who
Because here's the thing.
Podcast is
If
over.
you pitch this to me and you said, I think that there's, a 10 or 20% chance that this is a Charmeleon and a Charmander and a Charizard, I'd be like, all right, I'll give you a 10 or 20%. Yes, I see it. I'll give you a 10 or 20% chance that was JCB's intention. But you guys are coming at me like this is obvious. And I think it's the ink blot thing where you can see anything you want to see. Cody. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Cody.
I'm not even
Cody.
I'm not even going as far as to say that this needs to be the 3 evolution. Even if you remove that, so there's such a strong theme in the chapter of sight, vision, adjusting your vision, thinking you're seeing something, light and dark, night and day, the photos overexposed, like expanded reality. Like there is such a theme of sight that there's an aspect of sight that needs to be applied to this photo. Maybe that is adjusting your vision to pick out these characters. Maybe it's picking out characters in the photo. Maybe it's something else, but there has to be something else other than just, oh, there's a Mewtwo. Like, come on. Maybe it's just supposed to be showing us the location. That I would say could be it, but I think it's wild to say that this entire photo is here just to hide a little Mewtwo. No.
It's not a 20% chance. It's a 90% chance that these are.
That's what I have to push back on.
Altogether,
I don't want to just push back on it in general of like, no, that couldn't possibly be right. I'm pushing back on your confidence in it. I think your confidence is wildly too high.
My confidence
for sure something.
My confidence would be very low. So let's just go back to the original image here. So you
just said 90%.
Yeah, so let's play a game. So what's your confidence that this is supposed to be a Mewtwo, Cody?
90%.
Because it's sharp. It's a sharp image. And it's obviously very clear.
It goes without saying that it's something. And then the only question that would bring me down from 99 to 90 is that it doesn't really actually look like Mewtwo, but he set the precedence with the Froakie and the Greninja that there got to be artistic interpretations of the Pokemon for probably copyright reasons. So that bumps me down from a 99 to a 90.
Okay. So let's...
No. Can we just pause on it? I want to...
Go ahead.
You have no hesitation that it's maybe the Greninja. You think it is for sure a Mewtwo.
Oh, I'd be very, very, very surprised if it was a Greninja. I'd say of my remaining 10%, maybe 2% that it's Greninja. So 90% Mewtwo, 2% Greninja, 8% something else.
All right.
I would just like to go on the record that I'm still a little on the fence about that. I know you guys disagree with me there, but like if you look at the shape of the ears, it very much matches the artistic interpretation in the book. So you got the pointy ears, you got the pointy eyes, the sharp nose, these really long pointy fingers. Generally it's the same. It's just the same, minus the tail.
The tail could be the scarf.
But
I don't know.
And the other thing is there's a lot of room for artistic interpretation when you're going from a copyrighted Pokemon to something that's not copyrighted but supposed to reference that Pokemon. He's already made that leap to create the Greninja in the book. So I think if you wanted another Greninja, it would look a lot more like his non-copyright Greninja he's already created versus just like a whole separate artistic interpretation, a whole different way of a Greninja.
Well, I think it is very similar. It just is kind of 3D to make it fit in with this photo. I mean, I think this having a tail versus, now I'm really cementing myself in this, which I don't want to say like this is 100% what I believe. I'm saying I think there's an argument to be made that maybe if this were the Greninja, having a tail here versus not having a tail. I mean, we do have the Froakie with a tail in that artist. Like, there could be something that we're just supposed to be picking up on with the tails, and by having it omitted in the one photo, maybe that's placing an emphasis on it. Anyways, that was kind of a tangent. I just want to say I think there's a possibility there.
Okay. So let me ask the next question in my quiz.
Yes.
What percent confidence are you that this is a frog image of some sort? I have it labeled here as Froakie, but it's a frog. What do you think?
2 or 3% chance that that's a frog.
What do you mean? 2. Just think about what you're saying with 2%. Like if there was no frog in the story, sure. The main character is a frog. I think that has to at least boost it up from 3%.
Okay.
And I'm not saying I'm 100% on board for it. But right. You can't be saying 2 to 3%.
If he came out and he was like, "This is a frog," and you were supposed to identify this as a frog, I would be flabbergasted. I'd be like, "No way."
All right. So, what are your thoughts? Let's start with the most easy one first. That this could be a Charizard. What percent chance would you give that?
I mean, do you want me to do these? You want me to do these individually versus all three? Because I think
yes, individually
as a tandem. If tandem means more than just 2,
a trio,
as a group,
as
a trio, I think it's much stronger as a trio than individually.
Yes, that was.
Is that what your game is?
That was my game. Your game, exactly.
Were you going to add them up, or are you going to do multiplication between the 3?
I was quick trying to do the math on my phone, and I couldn't get it. So I was going to maybe follow up with the math later. Because
I think it would work. I think it would work.
Yeah.
Against you, because if I said like 20% chance of one, 20% chance of 20% chance of the third,
right? But
you'd be like, well, then the chances of all 3 is like less than 1%.
It's lower, but we would do the inverse of that and show you that the chance of all 3 being together would be higher. Yes. Anyway,
yeah,
you get my point though. That all 3 of these together, especially with this Mewtwo pointing at one of them. And that one being the middle evolution, which is conveniently missing in the chapter when talking about Froakie and Frogadier. Sorry, Froakie and Greninja, with Frogadier being missing. Like, that seems... I would be flabbergasted if that wasn't the purpose of it.
Really? Yeah, because I'm down at probably 20-25% chance that that's something. If it came out that was what we were supposed to identify, is that's 3 evolutions of Charmander, I wouldn't be flabbergasted. I would say, huh, that surprises me. That'd be my reaction. Huh. That is surprising. But I wouldn't be like, no. Yeah, I think when you stare at an image with this much noise in it, you can just find things. And I'd almost feel better about it if the Mewtwo wasn't there, but he's already set the precedent that, hey, I put something this crisp hidden in this image, and then, but now I'm going to put these other 3 things just way more ink blotty in the same image.
Mm-hmm. But I think the Mewtwo had to be more sharp, especially if you look at the printed image, because it's smaller, right? So
why not just make it bigger then?
Because I think he needed to put more information in the image than what you're giving him credit for.
More than just the point?
Yeah. And
all right. Well,
we'll agree to disagree continuously on this.
What's that?
We'll agree to disagree continually on this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way this ends, right? Is us agree to disagree. And I will say, it's tough because we are all kind of logical and open-minded people, I think. That I don't want these kind of disagreements to be interpreted the wrong way, because it very quickly becomes like Blake thinks for sure those are those 3 things, and Cody thinks for sure they're not.
Right.
But we're all very open-minded, and we're really just arguing over our confidence level in it.
Agreed.
And I have very low. I wouldn't even say the 3 evolutions thing. I would just say low confidence, not even very low. And you seem to have high, maybe very high.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not so heels dug in that there is no world where this is or isn't that.
That's correct. I agree.
So I don't want it to come off like that when we have our disagreements. Anyway.
Yes, very good. Good context. All right. I think that will be enough Discord detectives for today. Should we dive into coincidence of the day? All right, Cody, you have a true coincidence of the day today.
Now that I'm all riled up. Quick reminder that the coincidence of the day, we've done some that are kind of more interesting, but really they're just supposed to be little quips about how we basically can't get TTI out of our head in our day-to-day life. And we just see things that are always reminding us of the treasure hunt. And that's what this is. If you want to go ahead and pull up the picture, Bryn and I were in the post office the other day. I had that previous stamp theory that I'd been looking into. And I look up and I see, again, I mean, this is disconnected because my stamp theory was lion's share and this Appalachian Trail is the part 2. But see the Appalachian Trail on a stamp in the old USPS. And immediately we start talking about treasure inside instead of post office stuff like we're supposed to be talking about. So just another one of the many and increasing number of coincidences that are always around us. The more research we do and more threads we pull on, the more everything is just the treasure hunt.
You have Goodnight Moon stamp for the eclipse theme.
Eclipse.
SpongeBob SquarePants for knowing every corner of the area in Pokemon Box.
Mm-hmm.
Baby animals versus the Pokemon Box. It's just, it's nonstop.
Yeah. It all sounds like fun and games until everything you say or do or look at in the real world is just a connection to be made.
Yeah.
All right. Good episode, everybody. I think it was quite interesting content today.
I'm very excited for that Pokemon box to be solved and see who gets to gloat.
Well, help me out and then we can solve it.
Brent, if you could solve it, please. That's my new main motivator for solving that.
So show I'm wrong.
Help me out.
All right. I think that's a pod. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will catch you guys next week.
Searching for clues, let's